What is going on? Thank you for tuning in to a Friday night edition of the MMA Podcast. It is June 5th, 2015, and it is the 130th TMP. We got a lot to break down. UFC Fight Night Condit versus Alves was last week, and we had huge news from the drug testing front. The UFC announces much stricter testing, much more regular testing, and much harsher punishments if you test positive. We're going to talk about all that, a little bit more about that Reebok deal. And this coming weekend, we have UFC Fight Night from New Orleans, Tim Boetsch versus Dan Henderson. And we got the hero with us as co-host from New Orleans. Let's do it. Baton Rouge, same thing.
We did it for the love of the game. We did it, mama. I did it for. Mama. The game will never be the same. We did it, mama. I did it for.
You're listening to the MMA Podcast.
Thank you very much, Lenny Hart. It is the MMA Podcast, TMP 130. We thank you for tuning in. You, as always, can visit themmapodcast.com, twitter.com/themmapodcast. We're currently live on Ustream, and if you want to call in, the number is 213-457-3380, or you can Skype us at the MMA Podcast. You can also tweet us if you don't feel like talking at the MMA Podcast, and we'll read your tweets on air. We actually got a couple of tweets that we will get to shortly, but before we go any further, this weekend's UFC is in New Orleans at the Smoothie King Center, so we had to bring a little Cajun flavor. You might be familiar with the voice of Alan, the Westland Eagle at Westland Eagle AH on Twitter, but I think he's making his TMP debut tonight. His brother Hunter, who's on Twitter at Hero Shinwoo, is a part of the terrible, horrible, filthy group chat with myself, Yao, Ross, Alan, and Hunter. That man, if the world saw 5% of that, we'd all probably need to go into hiding and erase our Twitters and start new identities. It's pretty bad, but shit, I'm going off on a tangent. Hunter, the fuck's going on? Hero Shinwoo is on the air.
Not much, man. Just here in the dirty south of Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
You're in a printing factory, so
I am in a printing factory right now.
He gets off work in I think 20 or 30, so you'll eventually hear those noises fade. But if you are curious what the noises are, this motherfucker's in a printing factory, printing Common Core, printing knowledge. But let's
knowledge is power.
Yeah, let's and one more time, the number is 213-457-3380, or you can tweet us at the MMA Podcast. Like we always do, let's start off with last week's card, which was actually a very fun card. It was man, as far as numbers, one of the lowest watched cards. I don't think they got many views on Fox Sports, and the attendance was 3,500, which that's like a high school football game in America. I don't know. That's pretty poor. You've got a lot of cities in the U.S. who have not seen a UFC card in a while and could easily put up 5 digits. So I don't know if this sort of lackluster card, attendance-wise, will mean less cards in Brazil. We will see, but it was in Guyana. We had a lot of fights. Let's break it down like we usually do. I want to talk about the co-main and main event, but we saw a lot of finishes. We saw Tom Breeze with a finish. We saw Mirsad Bektik with a finish in the second round, beating Lucas Martins at 145. A nice triangle by Hani Jason in the main event of the prelims. we went to the main card. Darren Till with a very nice KO in the second round, and Alex Oliveira beating KJ Nunes with the rear naked choke. Alan, I almost called you Alan. Jesus Christ, Hunter. Did you manage to watch the whole Brazil card? Did you only catch the main card?
I pretty much only caught the main card. Actually, KJ Noon's fight was the first fight I saw, if I'm not mistaken.
What did you think about that RNC by Alex Oliveira?
Man, I was really upset. I was looking to see KJ, get something out, but he ended up giving his back up towards the end and getting choked out, and that was a little upsetting.
Yeah.
I like to see the good-looking guys win, the models, man. Him, Alan Jouban.
Nunes, fuck it, yeah. He is an attractive man. The co-main event, I really want to break down because Nick Lentz, after getting his ass pounded in the first round, really roared back in the second. I said that, he probably should be the underdog, but not as high as I think I saw him at plus 310, 320 on certain sports books. Charles, obviously the better fighter, just trouncing him in the first round and then subbing him out a minute 10 in the third round. What did you think about the fight and who next for Oliveira?
You know what? I have to disagree. I wouldn't necessarily say Oliveira was a better fighter. I would say Oliveira is definitely, let's say grappler. 100% better. His ground game is phenomenal. The way he's able to move and set things up, I was actually really impressed with Lentz, his ability to actually move around in the first and second round. He gassed out. He didn't look right. He gassed out really early on, and I think it had a lot to do with him not being on the right diet, because if I'm not mistaken, he normally works with Dolce, correct?
I think so, yeah.
So I think that was a big factor in him gassing out. He looked like he put on a lot of weight. But, I was a little upset. I really wanted Lentz to get that win.
And this puts Charles at, I think, four straight wins. He lost to Cub via KO. He lost to Frankie via decision. And since then, he's rattled off wins, I think, all by submission, except for the Jeremy Stevens win. He beat Ogle, he beat Hioki, he beat Stevens, and now he beat Lentz. I wouldn't hate a fight with him against Max Holloway, maybe, because
I was thinking the same exact thing.
Yeah, man, that would be
Holloway
a
would be
very,
great.
very fun fight. Yeah, because he's fought a lot of dudes there in the top five. He fought Edgar, he fought Swanson.
Especially with Holloway coming off his win against Cub,
Exactly. Yeah, that Charles versus Max. I don't know if Ricardo Lamas is going to be taking much time off of his fight against Chad Mendez, where he lost, I think, about 2 months ago via first round KO. Lamas would make sense. I'm looking now. I don't think Lamas and Oliveira have fought yet. So Lamas and Max Holloway, I think, would be the most rational choices for a next opponent for Charles Oliveira. Carlos Condit, what the fuck, man? The natural born killer. He got the nickname for a reason. The dude has 30 wins, 28 of them by finish. And he landed an elbow that completely demolished the top of Thiago Alves' nose.
His nose exploded.
Oh, it looks so nasty. The nose bone went up into like his brainal area. In the moment, I think myself and a lot of fans weren't very pleased with the fight being waved off. But then when you saw his nose, man, thank God for that doctor stopping the fight.
I have to agree,
or
100%.
Dude, what the fuck? So that puts Carlos back in the win column after, I guess, UFC 171, the
When he lost to,
knee injury loss to Woodley in March 2014.
That's a very, very upsetting way to lose.
In Dallas, Texas. Yeah, it had been a year and a little over 2 months, but he roars back, defeats Thiago. Before we talk about who the next opponent should be for Condit, let's listen to his post-fight interview with John Anik.
Here with the natural-born killer Carlos Condit here in your place of business. I'm not sure the return could have gone any better than this. You still prove, without a doubt, you are still one of the best fighters in the world. You put on a show. Congratulations.
Estamos aqui com o vencedor Carlos Condit. Sem dúvida, você mostrou que você está aqui para ficar. Você é um dos grandes lutadores. Fala pouco da sua performance.
Thank you very much. You know, nothing but respect to Thiago Alves. He's a guy that I've looked up to in the sport for years, and it was an honor to fight him.
É uma honra lutar com o Thiago Alves. Ele é um cara que eu sempre me espelhei, é um cara que eu sempre gostei.
After that first round, you seemed to say to yourself, I just need to open up in round 2. Man, did you open up. You opened him up. What was your mentality going into that second round after getting those first 5 minutes back and under your belt?
Depois do primeiro round, qual era a sua mentalidade entrando naquele segundo round?
Well, after the feeling out process, I just started thinking about the different things that we had worked on. We put together a lot of different tools, a lot of tactics, and the first thing that I threw that we had worked on really worked.
Depois de sentir pouco a luta, eu comecei a lembrar de todas as
Donald, but this performance certainly puts you in a position to, at the very least, call your shot. You are back. You look better than ever. Who might be next for the natural-born killer?
Quem que você acha que vai ser o próximo para você? Tem uma luta de cinturão para acontecer, mas essa luta mostrou que você com certeza está perto aí.
I don't know, whoever, you know what I mean? I want a good fight. I want somebody exciting. I want somebody that the fans are excited to watch me fight. Those are the kind of fights that I want to be in. So, whoever, whatever. Let's do it.
Pode ser qualquer um. Eu quero lutar com alguém que...
And that about did it. I hate that answer. What the fuck? You just pulled off one of the most impressive finishes of 2015. You took
And you don't call anybody out.
You took a seasoned veteran in Thiago Alves, and you pushed his nose into his motherfucking brain.
He made him look like a fucking ragdoll.
And you get the stage. Who do you want? You can call out Woodley.
Anybody.
Woodley would make so much sense. I want Tyron Woodley. In our fight, I was beating him, and my knee got fucked. I want to fight him again. Perfect. Call out Johnny. Call out the fucking winner of Lawler versus Rory.
You know what?
I cannot express how much I hate fighters. Yeah, I'll fight whoever, and it's gonna be a fun fight, and I respect my opponents. Fuck!
Pick a side. Play a heel. Play a fucking face. Stop being this nobody. You want to draw. You want to make money. Have people come and watch you.
Carlos Condit could give Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald, Johnny Hendricks, Tyron Woodley, anyone a run for his money, because if anyone has the quote-unquote puncher's chance in the UFC, it's a guy like Condit who can just piece up these combinations. As far as like who has the best combination highlight reels in the UFC of all time, your top two, in my opinion, might actually be Anderson Silva and Carlos Condit. Condit just has some beautiful punch to kick to jab to elbow, just like making it look so pretty. He can finish anybody. And to stand there after a brutal KO, he had blood all over his face when the fight was finished. Just be like, yeah, I don't know, I'll fight whoever. It drives me fucking insane, huh?
He definitely needs a top 5 guy, though.
Yeah, I
Dude,
don't know. Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, we know we have Robbie versus Rory, June 11th at UFC 189.
Fuck, what is Johnny doing?
Johnny doesn't have a scheduled fight. Woodley has been calling Johnny out, which I guess would make a lot of sense for a title eliminator fight for the winner of UFC.
I don't want to see either of these guys lay and prey on each other. They're too good to do that.
Main event. You have Matt Brown, who is a slot below Condit. Brown's and Condit
on a losing streak, isn't he?
are both some fucking hitters, but yeah, Brown's last 2 fights, he's lost to Robbie Lawler and Johnny Hendricks, and he actually is also he is also going to fight at UFC 189 next month. He's fighting Tim Means, so it should be a very nice chance for Brown to get back in the win column. Maybe fight Condit. Dude, Brown versus Condit, I think was supposed to be a fight back in 2013 at UFC on Fox 9, but like a week before, Brown pulled out of a fight with a back injury. Pardon me for that burp as well. So, yeah, Brown didn't fight on UFC on Fox 9, and neither did Condit. And I remember being stoked as shit for that card. So, I don't know, maybe try and remake the Brown-Condit fight if you're not able to match him up with Woodley or Hendricks.
I hate to interrupt. I'm actually about to walk out. If you want to give me 5 minutes, you can go ahead.
Yeah, and that actually gives me a few minutes to transition from this UFC Condit Alves card to the news, which we got a whole bunch of news. Let's play the damn news drop. That's the damn news drop. And we got some huge news from the UFC. They did a special announcement presser, and it was all about drug testing and all about them really, really expanding huge the nature of them drug testing fighters. It used to be that you would get and this isn't like way back. This is 1 or 2 years ago. Fighters would only be tested around the fight. So fighters could juice, do whatever the fuck, and make sure they were clean. If you could mute up, Hunter. They knew basically they could juice in the off season, juice during training camp, and as long as they cycled off and were clean around fight day, they were straight. Recently, they pulled it back a lot. They basically banned TRT, which was going around and being used by a ton of fighters, especially older fighters. And they started to test around camp. So, okay, now I can only juice in the off season. Now the UFC has pulled it back about as far as possible. They're going to be testing fighters 365 days a year, whether you're injured, whether you aren't in camp, you have a fight or not, you're going to be tested. And there's actually a thing saying you've got to make yourself available to USADA agents at all times, even if it means, if you leave town, you have to tell the UFC or USADA, hey, if you want to test me, I'm going to be, in Houston instead of where I live in Dallas. It's fucking crazy. Before we dive a little bit deeper, Hunter, what were your first reactions to hearing the UFC is really not playing any games with their drug testing?
A lot of people are going to be fucked.
Yeah, that was my first thought too. Like,
oh
my God,
fucked.
You are going to see a lot of fighters. You know what? The thought didn't pop in my head until till now. I think this is going to kick in July. Starting in July, start betting the underdogs, because you're going to have a lot of favorites who are known for just being fucking monsters. And they're going to look deflated as shit at the weigh-ins. They're going to look way different. And just watch the weigh-ins. You will have a lot of fighters who are the favorites in Vegas weigh in and just look like deflated versions of themselves. And I would say bet against those guys, and you might make a lot of money. Yeah, Hunter,
I mean,
a
makes
lot
sense,
of people are going to be fucked.
You want a legitimate, you want to have a legitimate. I mean, not to say that the UFC isn't legitimate. You want a clean sport, this is the fucking way to go.
Yeah.
You have a lot of guys who pull out of fights, who do this, who do that, who get caught, and they're just going to keep doing it over and over again. Why not make, these punishments more severe? It just makes sense. It's not fair to the guys who put in all this work and who are just natural. It's not fair to them.
And speaking of the punishments, Jesus Christ, not only will fighters be tested a bunch, which I would say most fighters maybe get tested between 1 and 3 times a year, all around fight time or during camp. We've seen tweets from fighters in the last month or two saying, damn, I just fought on a card and I didn't get drug tested. I kind of wish I would have gotten drug tested, because now I know that maybe my opponent didn't get drug tested. Sorry, I'm pulling up the penalties now. Here. All right, so for your first positive test, you can be hit with a suspension between 1 and 4 years, which is huge. Your second offense, a possible 8-year ban. Think about 8 years. 8 years ago was June 2007. Your UFC champions were Randy Couture, Rampage Jackson, a very newly crowned Anderson Silva, Matt Serra, and Sean Shirk. Those were the UFC champions. Think about how much the sport has changed. Not just champs, but like the way the sport has evolved, and how strikers now are much more multifaceted, and the ground game. You've got to be good in wrestling and jiu-jitsu. Just man, an 8-year ban may as well be a lifetime ban, because not only is the game going to change a bunch while you can't fight, but I don't know. You've got to do something in those 8 years to pay off the bills. A third offense would be a possible lifetime ban, which I don't know. The 8-year ban is basically that, but I don't know. A suspension between 1 and 4 years for a first offense is huge, and this basically makes it so if a fighter tests hot, even if it's his first test, this is going to be a career-altering thing. Hunter?
I think it'll be career-ending. I mean,
yeah.
Like you said, 8 years, 1 to 4 years is a long time even. You got to think, man. Some of these guys, they fight multiple times in 1 year. What are you going to do, depending on how old you are? Let's say, you're 30, 35 years old. You get caught. You're done. You're 40 years old by the time you come back in.
Yeah.
You can probably name on a handful of how many guys who are over 40 years old, maybe not even, who are still actively competing.
Yeah, and you're for sure going to, I guess, see older fighters test hot more, probably a lot more in the heavier weight classes. I'm pulling up another article here, so I apologize for stammering. Chad Dundas, he writes for BleacherReport.com, and he had a very interesting take. I'm going to quote him here. If you're a person who roots for a clean sport, this was a glorious day. If you're a person who also roots for workers' rights, you probably have some lingering questions. Despite the avalanche of seemingly good news, it's become increasingly difficult to see how the UFC can continue to justify employing its fighters as independent contractors instead of regular employees. While it's clear that better, more reliable drug testing is sorely needed and absolutely welcome in MMA, this was yet another enormous decision by the UFC that appears to have gone down without any substantive input from its fighters. The implementation of this program will necessarily cause major changes in their relationship with the UFC as well as in their daily lives. And while the reasons might be entirely virtuous, it feels like somebody should have at least asked what they thought. Fighters will now have to notify the UFC when they travel for training, on business, or even for personal reasons. They'll have to be available to USADA drug testers 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And that
God damn, what is this, North Korea?
Yeah, and Chad is one of my favorite writers on Bleacher Report. He makes a really good point that, yeah, this is good news. You know, the juicing in MMA is not at all like juicing in baseball. Juicing in baseball means that, oh, I took steroids so I can hit the ball farther. And, yeah, does it fuck with the integrity of the game? Yes, it does, a lot. But in MMA, when you're juicing, you're hitting a guy harder. You're upping the chances of you are upping the chances of causing brain damage, causing, death. It's a very serious thing, juicing in mixed martial arts. So I don't know. I really like the new changes, but I'm sort of tentative about it, just like Chad is, You have things like this. You have things where you hear that Dana and the Fertittas are getting a little under half of the Reebok deal, which, if anything should go to fighters, it should be the revenue from what they wear on their shorts. Yeah, you want to scoop out 10%, 20%, whatever, but you want to scoop out 40% of that. It just reeks of greediness, and I hate to use that word because I love what the UFC's done. I love what Zuffa's done, but greediness is the most accurate word I can use for wanting to scoop out almost half of the Reebok money for themselves.
I mean, these guys are literally going to get fucked in the ass. Excuse my language. This is, in my opinion, it's insane. Once this pay came out and these deals with the Reebok and how much these guys are not going to be making, it's insane. I mean, I don't understand. These guys are going to be losing thousands and thousands of dollars per camp that they have to pay their coaches, everybody that helps them prepare for a fight. It's fucking asinine.
And bringing this up really sort of naturally segues us to our next topic, which is this Reebok deal, man. What the fuck? We've heard a lot of fighters, Brennan Shaw, Matt Mitrione, talk a lot of shit about the deal, but we hadn't heard anything from any UFC champions. That was until a few days ago when Jose Aldo.
Yes.
Dude, I was going really hard for Conor, which I'll probably still root for him against
my fucking king.
Aldo. But this made me like the featherweight champ a lot more. Jose Aldo, saying, quote, "First, it's bullshit. They all talked about it. We athletes lose a lot, even as they spoke, which is like a basketball." This is a rough translation, but basically he is saying the Reebok deal is fucking us. Fighters can make a lot more money getting sponsors independently, all the way from me down to fighters who are fighting on the prelims. You know, this sort of gives another. Sorry, I'll let you go.
I was just gonna say. I
it's all
mean,
good.
you got to think how many sponsors do most fighters tend to have. It's a lot of different sponsors that these guys have that they're gonna end up losing. It's
a lot.
If you do the math, it adds
Dynamic
up, man, and it's insane. I have to say though, I'm kind of a hypocrite because right now I'm wearing my Reebok pump shoes.
Boo. Throw them away. No, but I don't see Reebok as an evil,
it's not their
honestly.
fault.
Yeah, like I see them as a business who took advantage of a great deal, and I think Dana and Zuffa did a very terrible job looking out for fighter interest signing this. It shows why you might need a union. And Reebok just got an awesome deal, and not only is the deal bad, but Zuffa is taking 40%, which is insane. And this almost gives the UFC 189 main event sort of the tent of you have the champion Aldo, who is speaking out against the UFC, speaking out against Dana, speaking out against Lorenzo, and you have Conor, who is Lorenzo Fertitta and Dana White's redheaded stepchild. Just they're paying for the McMansion, and Conor's doing all sorts of media every day.
If you're getting offered all of this, stuff,
I don't blame him. Yeah,
your bosses, would you not take it? I mean, I sure as hell would.
Oh, I would too, brother.
Maybe that makes me a sellout, but I mean, I'm being treated as royalty.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me wonder. You know me, I'm a huge Conor fan. I got to meet him back in Boston at the Fox Sports 1 card, the first one. He's taking advantage of being this pet, I have to say. I'm not saying that in a bad way, but I would do the same.
Yeah. And this brings us to our next point: Aldo versus Conor. Whoever wins, Frankie Edgar wants next. Frankie's manager saying that he will not accept any fight beside the winner of Jose Aldo versus Conor. We'll save breaking down the fight for the week before. But Frankie, he's won four straight, and I agree wholeheartedly. He deserves the next shot. Since losing to Aldo at UFC 156,
exactly.
which was one of the best fights of the fucking year. He loses, and then since then he's rattled off 4 straight against Oliveira, against BJ Penn. That fight hurt. Against Cub Swanson.
Damn, we were there.
And against Uriah Faber. He won those 4, and I think he for sure, especially with the win over Cub, who seemed like was next in line. He knocks out him, then subs him, and then beats Faber just about 3 weeks ago in what was one of the most one-sided main events I've seen in a while. I think those wins against Cub, Faber, Penn, Charles, he for sure should get the next shot.
Agreed. The whole Conor thing, everybody, wanted to argue that maybe before, Conor was, he destroyed, 2 top guys. Fucking great,
Yeah.
He's the whole package. That's why he got his shot. He beat 2 top guys, and he's a total package. Frankie Edgar already had his shot. He lost. Yeah, he's had some outstanding fights since then. 100% agreed. Give him the the winner of McGregor and Aldo.
For sure. Well, I'm glad we agree there. Speaking of next in line, Dana this week actually announced who would be next in line at 205 and 185. And, usually there is an obvious next in line, and we don't really need to question it. But at 205, we didn't know whether it would be Bader, whether it might be Alex, whether John Jones would come back at middleweight. We didn't know. It was basically between Jacare and Rockhold. And the winners of the lottery ended up being Alex Gustafsson and Luke Rockhold. They will be the next title contenders in their weight classes. I've seen a lot of talk on both sides for Jacare Rockhold, but picking Luke was probably the less controversial move than picking Gus. Let's start with Luke. First off, do you think Luke earned it, or should Jacare have gotten the next shot?
No. Luke 100% deserved it. I mean, look what he did to Machida.
Yeah.
He fucking manhandled Machida on the ground, and we were there for Machida and Weidman's fight in Vegas, and a few times during the Weidman Machida fight, I was scared for Chris Weidman. Same way, not to go off topic, how when Chris Weidman was at this against this fight with Vitor, he was getting rocked kind of for a second. People tend to think, oh, that's, Weidman getting hurt. No, that's just kind of how he's setting up, He kind of ducks down and, he gets hit a little bit, but he stands back up and he's okay. This fight with Rockhold I think this is going to be a full 5-round fight. This is going to go the distance. I think this is going to end up being a controversial decision.
Ooh. Yeah, both dudes are great strikers. Can grapple anyone. I feel bad for Jacare. The guy's won 8 straight fights, and you kind of have to look at shitty matchmaking, both from Strikeforce and the UFC. This is one of the best fighters in the world. And his 8 wins have come against Bristol Morunde, Derek Brunson, Ed Herman, Chris Camozzi, Yushin Okami, Francis Carmont, Gegard Mousasi, and Chris Camozzi. One elite fighter in there, and Mousasi. So since losing his belt in Strikeforce to Luke Rockhold, which that, Rockhold's just domination against Lyoto and the fact that he had beaten Jacare in the past, I can see that, Luke's probably, Jacare maybe deserved it more, but I think Luke is kind of unquestionably a better fighter. So I see making that choice. I feel really bad for Jacare that he's only been given one real stiff test since he lost his belt to Rockhold almost four years ago. I think almost unquestionably, if he wins again, I don't know if he has his next fight in place. He was going to fight Romero, but now Romero's fighting Lyoto. Jacare better get the next shot.
I think Jacare, let him sit out, let him wait. He deserves it. He's earned it. Jacare and Rockhold both earned it, but obviously, like you said, the clear choice was Rockhold, but
you can't give it to them both.
No, exactly. Let Jacare sit out. Automatically, I would assume he gets the next shot.
Yeah. And, it's funny because I think he was guaranteed the next shot after he beat Yushin Okami back September 2013, and he's done nothing but win since then, and he just keeps getting fucked, keeps getting leapfrogged, whether it's by Lyoto or Vitor or now Luke. I think this will probably be the last one, though, if he keeps keeps winning. He's got to eventually get a title shot. And then we
I'm
have
letting you.
over at 205 a fight that was rumored to be at UFC 191. Since then, Cormier has said it will not be there, which I think is September 5th in Vegas at the MGM Grand. But the fight is going to go down, apparently. Daniel Cormier, the man who won the belt by beating Rumble Johnson at UFC 187, he's going to be taking on the Swede Alex Gustafsson, who lost his last fight, which the UFC sort of did the same thing in each fight, which is they picked probably the guy who maybe didn't deserve it the most, but the guy who was probably the best available fighter, Luke being the best. And I've heard a lot of talk about Ryan Bader, and look, I will agree that Ryan Bader deserved it more. Gustafsson is coming off of a loss, and Bader has won 4 straight, and a lot of those wins, versus top fighters.
Makes sense.
But honestly, who is the better fighter, Bader or Gus? I think we all
Clearly
know that it's Gus, and I think this is probably going to be a better fight. I thought Bader sort of had won himself the shot with all of that talk he did at the post-fight presser, getting in a near scuffle with
and that's why he did
DC. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that might do enough to drum up interest in the fight, but apparently it didn't, and we're gonna see DC versus Gus. First, let's backtrack. Who are you leaning toward in Weidman versus Rockhold?
You know what, man? I hate to pick against either guy.
Yeah,
it's tough seeing 2 guys that you enjoy to watch fight, but I'm gonna have to go with the All-American Chris Weidman. I think his overall ground game and striking is just going to be a lot better. Also in favor of your boy Ross Finkelstein.
Oh yeah.
I got to meet Weidman once, and he was a really fucking nice guy.
Nice.
Not to say that Rockhold's not a nice guy, and that's not why you pick somebody, but I'm going to choose Chris Weidman.
Luke has that very quick ground speed, has some incredible subs he's pulled off. I forget who that, it was like an inverted triangle. It was fucking
It's going to be crazy to see if him and Chris Weidman go to the ground, because both of those guys are incredibly strong.
Luke has some slick jits, but the way Chris Weidman, the force that dude gets behind those strikes he lands from the top, Jesus
and his wrestling
Christ,
takedowns.
Yes, if he takes you down and can land 5 or 6 of those hard ground and pound strikes, it's all over. I'm also taking the current champion Weidman. And then let's switch gears to 205, DC versus Gustafsson. Who are you picking here? Gus has really showed off some impressive takedown offense and defense fighting Jones. Jones proved that length can really be a problem for DC, and if Gus can sort of employ the length and use those strikes the way Jones did at UFC 182, he could dominate DC. But, man, Gus better not hope he gets taken down, because if he does, Cormier is going to apply some damage to you.
Speaking of, I hate to pick either guys. I love Gus. I highly, highly rooted for him. I still say he beat John Jones. I don't care what anybody says.
I thought it was 48-48.
He won. Don't care. Judges were wrong. Daniel Cormier, he's a Louisiana native. Lafayette is about 45 minutes away from me. I love my Louisianimals, but man, I I have to pick Gus in this. I don't think DC is going to be able to take him down. If you go back and watch the Gus versus Jones fight, neither guys could take each other down. You know, it was up until I guess maybe in the 4th or 5th round, it didn't go to the ground.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't see Daniel being able to overpower Gus. I think Gus is as strong, if not stronger, than John Jones, and Jones's takedown defense was just so on par. I think Gus is almost as equal, if not better.
I think if you look at their performances against John Jones, who was a shared, opponent of him, if you have the Gus who fought Gus who fought Jones at UFC 165 against the Cormier that fought Jones at UFC 182, Gus doesn't just win, Gus beats the shit out of DC. Luckily though, you're looking at the best fight of one guy's career against the worst fight of one guy's career. So I don't know if necessarily you can judge it all on that. Look, Jones and Gus are both masters of reach, which really worries me because that really gave DC issues. But the way they use reach, Jones used the reach a lot in wrestling. The way he just could sort of grab him and yank him and bring him down. Gus more uses his reach boxing. I'm still leaning toward DC. I think his stand-up game, he probably punches harder than Gus, even though Gus will probably be able to land a lot more and stay on the outside. Like you said, it'll probably come down to whether DC can take down Alex Gustafsson, and I think he will be able to do it. And I see it ending via 3rd or 4th round TKO, strikes from the top. But this should be a fun fight. Currently on best fight odds, DC is a pretty big favorite. He's minus 280 against Gus's plus 220. So I would say with those odds, even though I have DC winning, I would say bet on Gus for sure.
I think people lost a little faith in Gus after his last loss to Rumble.
Which there may have been a headbutt there. I'm not sure. I can't
literally
say.
Gone back with my brother Westland Eagle AH. That's his full name. And watched in slow motion. There is a headbutt. It's a slight headbutt, but there is a headbutt. As soon before Gus actually falls to the ground, he does get headbutted by Johnson. Now, nobody said anything about it because Gus is a good guy, and he doesn't seem like he'd be the type of person to call out maybe an injury or anything and blame that on something. I don't know. I still say if you have Gus and Rumble fight 2 out of 3, Gus wins. A lot of people are probably going to think I'm crazy or delusional, but maybe I am. That's how I see it.
I think if they fight 10 times, the margin is no wider than 6-4. I think they're very evenly matched, and a lot of it is going to come down to what form each guy walks out with, or what walks out in. We actually have a listener tweet from our boy Jason Jones at Colored Spaces, who says, who should Mighty Mouse fight next? I think he should fight Jussier Formiga, which I would say it's between 3 dudes now at Fly. You've got Johnson, who is the pound for pound king, maybe. and it's got to be between John Dodson, Joseph Benavidez, and Jussier Formiga, a.k.a. Jussier da Silva. I don't know why he has different last names. I think his nickname is Formiga, which means ant, which is a sort of funny nickname for a flyweight. But Jussier has won 3 straight against Wilson Rees, Zach Makovsky, and Scott Jorgensen. Benavidez has won 3 straight against Tim Elliott, Dustin Ortiz, and John Moraga. And John Dodson has also won 3 straight against Daryl Montague, John Moraga, and Zach Makovsky. Benavidez and Dodson's most recent loss coming against Mighty Mouse, and Formiga's recent loss coming against Benavidez. He also lost to Dodson less than a year before that. So it's almost a dead heat between Formiga, Benavidez, and Dodson. I would say, I see why you might want the Brazilian Formiga to fight Johnson next, which is the fact that he hasn't fought him yet. Johnson has beat Joseph twice. He's beat Dodson once. And Formiga would be a new opponent for him. The reason why I sort of think twice about giving him the next shot is the reason that, he's fought both Benavidez and Dodson and lost both of those fights. I say give Dodson the fight next. He's only fought Johnson once.
Yes.
Joe has fought him twice. And Dodson kind of gave him a run for his money. It was about 2.5 years ago at that January 2013 Fox card in Chicago. He rocked him hard during the first round. And I'm looking up the card now, but I think it was 48-47 on 2 of the judges' cards. It was 49-46 on the third judge's card. But 2 judges only saw a point difference. He took two rounds, and I think John has grown a lot since. He's 30, has picked up some skills, and has really impressed, KOing Daryl Montague at UFC 166, getting a TKO against John Moraga about a year ago to the day, and getting that unanimous win against Zach Makovsky at UFC 187. So I have Dodson. Who you got? Hiro Shimwu.
To be honest with you, man, I have to agree with you. I'd really like to see Dodson again.
Hell yeah.
I don't know, man. I might get shit for this. I'm not all that interested in your 125-pound class. I think DJ right now is just all over dominant, and I don't see him getting beat anytime soon.
You have a much lower finish rate at flyweight, so a lot of writers, a lot of fans are quick to pull the trigger if a guy says, I'm not too keen on the women's 115 pound weight class.
WMMA. I will watch WMMA over 125. Guys. Fuck, man. Women go out there and fucking bang with each other.
Yeah, I'm just saying, as far as fans who don't like the lighter weight classes or don't like women's MMA, I don't necessarily agree with them, but I can see where they're sort of coming from, because let's be honest, a fight at 205 or 265 probably going to be a bit more entertaining than a women's strawweight fight on the prelims.
Well, clearly.
Or a fight at 125.
You have a higher percentage of a finish rate, like you said.
Exactly.
But the thing I do love about smaller weight classes, these guys are so fucking quick. It's insane how fast they are. I've never seen so much speed and agility in MMA fighters before until you go and watch
Dodson. I was like, what the fuck?
TJ Dillashaw even. guys, fucking him. Even though Faber is not, the best fighter, his quickness. I mean, these guys at 135, 125, even 145, I would have to say, they're fucking fast.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you might not see the KO power, but yeah, the speed is there, 100%.
To me, that's entertaining.
Yeah. Another couple quick bits to get to before we break down this New Orleans card and get the fuck out of here. Luke Barnett, a member of Team Dark Side at Tough 17. After losing to Mark Munoz, I guess, what card was that? UFC Fight Night?
Philippines.
Faber, Edgar. Yeah. He loses to Mark, and the UFC has cut him. He, I guess, was signed 3 or 4 years ago after Tough. And, he is unfortunately cut. But I will say the guy, being a 6'6", middleweight and being still, I mean, I think he's only trained and fought for like 5 or 6 years. He has a lot of room to grow and get better, and with that frame, and with his age, still being young, I would not doubt at all that he makes a second run in the UFC in a couple of years.
Maybe not even the UFC. I mean, he could always sign with a smaller organization, Bellator, WSOF, or any of those guys. I've never been I'm a huge Team Dark Side Bad Guys fan. Not a big Barnett fan, though.
Yeah. Speaking of the bad guys, I also wanted to send out a congrats to one of the men who made this show possible early on, and that's none other than Chael P. Sonnen, who actually, I think yesterday, he had his first child with his wife, Brittany Thero Sonnen. So,
one lucky kid.
He's now Papa Chael Sonnen. So
Chael better train that kid. That's all I can say.
That kid is gonna be a monster on the wrestling mat in about 18 years. But Chael has his first kid. So big congrats out to Chael and Brittany both. Let's get to, speaking of Chael, one of his old training partners, Dan Henderson, is going to be fighting Tim Boetsch tomorrow night at the Smoothie King Center, just about 50-60 miles from where you live in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, man, about 45 minutes.
Nice. And you and Alan are both going, right?
Shit, yeah, bro. Floor seats. I made sure.
What?
Made sure to buy some good seats for this fight. It's been a long time since the UFC has been back to the dirty South.
I actually didn't know y'all were sitting on the floor. Fuck yeah, man, that's badass.
Yeah, dude. I think we tried to get in the first 3 rows, man, but I think we're probably in like the 5th or 6th row on the ground.
You were in the first row for, was that Newark or Boston?
Boston and Newark.
What?
We were on the first row for both of those, for Chael's for his fight against Jones and his fight against Shogun, yes.
Which those, I'm sure, were 2 very different experiences.
God damn. And
as a Chael fan.
The Jones fight was the first ever UFC event I got to go to, and I got to see my favorite fighter get beat. So it was a little upsetting, but it was redeemed at the Shogun fight.
Hey, I had the same exact experience at UFC 167, which is crazy because you think UFC 167 It wasn't billed as GSP's last fight. He sort of took off. It wasn't billed as Chael Sonnen's last fight. It wasn't billed as Rashad Evans' last fight. But in the main and co-main event, 3 of those 4 fighters have not fought since. Johnny, being the exception, has fought 3 or 4 times. GSP hasn't fought since. Rashad Evans hasn't fought since. Chael Sonnen has not fought since. It ended up being a sort of it was wild. And then I fucking go to the Tough 19 finale where I watch my favorite fighter of all time not only get starched. Man. He didn't only get starched, but that dude got retired. Terrible. But no, so when do doors open? Are you all getting there for like the first fight or showing up for the main card? What are the plans?
Bro, I think the doors open at 5 if I'm not mistaken, and I will definitely be there for the first, maybe not the first fight. They are having
Jose Quinones versus Leandro Morales.
Yeah. I think they're having a beer festival of some sort right outside of the Superdome, and it's a $40 entry of all you can drink beer, if I'm not mistaken, as to what Westland Eagle told me. So I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. Being a huge beer connoisseur as I am, I definitely can't miss that. Especially wanting to go inside of the arena, paying up to $10 per beer.
Yikes! Yeah. So the festival starts when?
To be honest, I'm not sure when that actually starts. I taking off work a little bit early tomorrow. Probably head out around 2:00, maybe 1.
All right. We'll take those 2 hours, get as toasty as you fucking can. Let's break down, let's break down all the fights up to the top 3, and then we'll break down the top 3 one at a time. You have the UFC Fight Pass, which starts with the fight I mentioned earlier, Jose Quinones taking on Leandro Morales. And then actually in a pretty interesting fight, the undefeated Brazilian grappler fighting out of Wand Fight Team, Ricardo Abreu, takes on Jake Collar. So that should be a good fight at middleweight. Scrolling up here, Fox Sports 1 prelims, which I assume will start, I don't have the times in front of me, even though I usually pull up the times. Let's pull up the times. Those will start at 8 Eastern. The main card starts at 10 Eastern, so sort of a later card. I guess it's timed out like a pay-per-view when the UFC usually will do fight nights and run them an hour or 2 earlier. Enough about times, folks. We have Joe Proctor versus Justin Edwards, Chris Wade against Christos Giagos, and Brian Ebersol, who originally was supposed to fight Alan Jouban. He got injured and moved to a July card, and now
I was looking forward to some fight.
Yeah, from Louisiana is Alan Jouban, but instead Brian will fight Omari Akhmedov. The main event of the Fox Sports 1 prelims will be Sean Jordan, a guy who I think played football at LSU, and he'll be fighting Derek Lewis. And then the first 3 fights in the main card, a couple bantamweight scraps, Francisco Rivera against Alex Caceres, and Joe Soto making his second UFC appearance. His first came just, I guess, about 8 or 9 months ago against Dillashaw for a title shot after Barao pulled out of the fight like a day before. He'll be fighting Anthony Burchak. And we got Thiago Tavares fighting Brian Ortega. What fights stand out to you here?
Really interested in Sean Jordan. Have to say, go Tigers. He played, I think, in 2003 and 2004. He was offered scholarships by many other states, but chose this awesome state. Sean Jordan, man, he's such a fucking cool guy. He actually tends to every now and then come in and do a lot of jiu-jitsu seminars over at my gym here in Baton Rouge. And he's just an overall nice guy.
What is that gym? Shout-outs.
UFC Gym 225, but otherwise known as Acadiana Muay Thai and BJJ Revolution.
Nice. Home of Dustin Johnson, who he did lose, but a badass kickboxer. Sorry, you were talking, I think, about Jordan doing classes there?
Yeah, man. He I think he came down, actually. No, he was here the last Dallas card that we had. He was here that Monday teaching a jiu-jitsu class that I didn't go to because I don't do jiu-jitsu.
All right, nice. Yeah, so
real men stand up.
So yeah, we have Jordan. Aside from Jordan Poyer, are there any other dudes repping the state of Louisiana there, or is that about it?
Other than that,
you were going to have DC, but he got pulled off last minute to fight Johnson.
Him, Poirier, and Sean were three of the biggest reasons.
Joban.
I almost sold my ticket because of that, but I was soaked that Cormier ended up getting a title shot. Not to speak badly of Henderson and Bosch. It's just you pay a lot of money and you end up getting that as a main event over what you were supposed to get, and it's a bit upsetting. But I get to see Poirier. Shout out to him, one of my MMA coaches. Well, one of the MMA coaches at my gym. I have to give a shout out to Thomas Webb. Is best friends with Dustin Poirier. Trains in ATT sometimes out in Florida with him. Yeah, man, it's going to be really, really great to see him fight in his home state.
Let's talk a catchweight fight. I think it's going to be fought at 160. Dustin taking on our Yancy Medeiros. I know you've talked a lot about training with Dustin Johnson, but does Poyer come up to the gym at all and train with you?
What? I don't know if he has before. He hasn't since I've been there, but I've actually asked him on Twitter about coming and teaching a striking class, and he's actually agreed to do it. So I asked his friend, my other stand-up coach, Thomas Webb, and he was like, "That's a good idea. We'll have to set up a time or whatever." Guess it all depends on the owner of the gym and everybody else in Dustin's time slot and everything. I'm not in the loop of all that stuff, but it would be really, really awesome to have Dustin come down here.
Yeah, and I'm looking now. I don't know if it was supposed to be a catch weight. I don't know if someone missed weight. I'm trying to pull in the weigh-in results now.
What's his name? Yancey. He missed by a good little bit. He actually, word is, he went to Dustin's room and told him ahead of time before the weigh-ins that he was gonna miss weight, which is why Dustin didn't seem to be upset with him.
Yeah, Dustin weighed in at 156. Yancey weighed in at 159.5. So it will be a catchweight fight. Honestly, this might be skill-wise the best fight on the entire card. Dustin is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, and his only loss is against maybe the best 145er in the world, and Conor McGregor. And even his losses before that are to top guys like Cub Swanson and Chan Sung Jung. And you have Yancey, who won the first 9 fights of his career. Then I guess you can call all of them losses. He lost via a freak thumb, like his thumb got bent back, so he lost by TKO to Hustem Kabalov. He ended up losing a fight to Yves Edwards because he failed a drug test, and then he lost to Jim Miller via guillotine choke. Since then, he's won performance of the night in both of his fights, getting subs, looking great. But Dustin Poirier is a significant step up from Damon Jackson and Joe Proctor. I don't think Yancey is going to be able to sort of handle Poirier like he did Proctor and Jackson.
Especially with Dustin being at a bigger weight class.
You know, this card is cool because you see a lot of cards with just these wild fights that shouldn't be made because one guy is like a plus, 550 and the other guy's like minus 700 because it's like such an obvious discrepancy in skill. This, I think your biggest favorite on the entire card is Joe Proctor over Justin Edwards at minus 210, which isn't a very big margin at all. So each fight from top to bottom should be relatively close. I'm looking at best fight odds, who gives it to Poirier with minus 180, and I would tend to agree that Dustin is probably the more well-rounded fighter in the matchup, and I'm sure you're going to agree because you're rooting for him because he's from Louisiana.
Not just because of that, but because he's a fucking excellent fighter.
Yeah. Let's move to the co-main. We got Ben Rothwell and Matt Mitrione. After losing to Brendan Schaub, Matt has won all three of his fights via KO. He beat Sean Jordan in the first round, beat Derek Lewis in the first round, those two actually fighting on the prelims. And then most recently, last December, he beat Gabe Gonzaga in the first round. Ben Rothwell also, he lost to Gonzaga back January 2013. He is also on a winning streak, all of those wins being by KO against Brandon Vera and most recently Alistair Overeem back, I guess, about 9 months at the Jacare Mousasi card. Both of these guys, what is the word I'm looking for? They don't necessarily look athletic, but they are athletic as fuck. They both,
yes, indeed.
They both have knockout power. This is one of those fights where, because I think we're going to see a knockout, I think it's going to go the full 15 minutes, because I feel like every fight that's guaranteed to get finished ends up going to the judges, and I have Matt Mitrione taking a 30-27. What about you?
Agreed, 100%. Mitrione is, yeah. I'm going with you, man.
But don't blink if you're watching it.
What was that?
I said don't blink if you are watching it, because it could end at any second.
It's one of those. It's going to end up being one of those fights where we could end up having an upset.
Yeah, I would not be shocked. Rothwell is the underdog, but he's only plus 165 in Vegas, which, I could see either guy score a knockout in any round and not be shocked at all. Let's move to our final topic before we log off. UFC Fight Night. It's labeled for these two men, Boach versus Henderson, and it makes you laugh because this is the main event of a card. And look, I don't want to besmirch either guy. They both have had awesome careers, but should this really be the main event of a fight card? You have Tim Boach. Tim Boach in his last 6 fights is 2-4. Hendo in his last 6 fights is 1-5. So combined, they're 3-9 in their last 6 fights.
Yeah, man.
Neither guy, I think, has a chance to make it to a title fight at middleweight or at 205.
It's not happening anytime
I
soon.
think the loser gets cut.
I would have to say, I'm hoping Henderson wins, just for the sake of I don't want to see him get knocked out again. He's an older guy, man, and who knows how much longer he has. It's a little upsetting. Like I said earlier, I paid a little bit, get a little bit of money for this, hoping to see Bader and Cormier. Exactly like you said, not to besmirch any of these guys, but you're wanting to get your money's worth and wanting to get, especially if it's in your hometown, like a really big fight. Not everybody can have that, and I don't know, man. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, taking Bader versus DC off the card devalued this card by a ton. You look at the guys that each has fought. I think Dan has been fighting on a much higher level than Boach. Boach's 4 losses are Boach's last 6 fights where he's 2-4. Costa Philippou loss, Mark Munoz loss, Dalloway split decision win, Rockhold loss, Tavares win, Ladies loss. Yeah, that's all right, but Dan has fucking fought Lyoto, Rashad, Vitor, Shogun, Cormier, and Gegard Mousasi. He has been fighting at a much higher level, but I think his gas tank is much closer to empty than Boach's. I think this is going to be the end of the road, at least in the UFC, for one of the greatest fighters ever, and Hendo. I hope, if he does indeed get cut, I hope he retires and, finds a good job and commentary, or I don't know, starts a podcast. I don't know. He's had an awesome career, but I think
that's the thing to do after you retire from MMA.
Yeah,
you start a podcast.
Yeah, man. Chael, fucking Stan, a bunch of dudes. But
God bless him.
A loss here would make it his 6th loss in 7 fights. I think Boach wins, and I think this is the end of the road for Dan.
I'm hoping, especially if he loses, man. I'm hoping, he's been around for a while. There's only so much your brain can take. After a while, you begin to lose functionality in certain aspects of your life and thinking, and your body can only take so much. So, either way, I think a lot of people would like to see Dan Henderson retire. He's not going for any titles anytime soon, if ever. So, what's the point unless you're trying to make a little bit of that Reebok money?
And it sucks because he was on a 7-1 run, and he was about to fight for the title at UFC 151, and he got injured. And that was, I think that was, fall of 2012. And before that, he was on this incredible run. Since then, he's gone 1-5. It was just, that may have been his moment. And we all know the story. Jones is too pussy to take Chael on short notice. So UFC 151 is the first UFC card ever that just gets canceled. It's shitty that that's the way it goes, but I forget whether it was a back injury or a knee injury. I'm looking now. I guess it was a knee, and those knees, especially if you're an older guy, which I guess 2 years ago that puts Dan at about 41, 42. A knee can really end things, and I'll be rooting for Dan, but if he loses and Vegas says that's probably going to be the outcome, and I usually listen to Vegas, If he loses, I hope this is his final fight. Anything else from you before we put a bow on this and send it out to the interwebs?
Nah, boss. Just wanna.
All right.
Well, yeah, no, I'd like to
Shout-outs.
give a shout out to all my Louisianimals out there, especially the guys that are fighting tomorrow. Louisiana's New Orleans especially is about to make a lot of money this weekend with the UFC Saturday and WWE coming to town on Monday.
Yeah. That's
so,
right.
KCCO, Chivon, and Deuces.
Deuces. Shout out to a bunch of folks, Davey Boy and his whole Team MMA for Life crew. We really appreciate you getting on board. Shout out to our boy Ramses, who has not been feeling
up, brother.
very well. Rest up. Hope you feel better soon. Of course. Wow, I can't even talk. Of course, the original host, the original gangster, Chris Lowenstein. I love this shit out of your little soft white tushy. Follow him at C Lowenstein. Follow Alan at West, Lynn Eagle AH. Who else? Yao _ The Truth. Ross Finkelstein. E before the L. Everyone I tweet and fuck with, and everyone who gives us positive vibes. Our boy Don Enrique, Kevin Black, all of you, we love the shit out of you, and we'll see you next week. Until then, we gone.
Jake, tune into the MMA podcast every Tuesday night.
Shout out to Mystery, cocksucker.
The MMA podcast, Jake is the host. And since Ramsey's been in the wheelchair, the Aunt Jimmy show has been on a roll. I wanna say John Jones is a host, so I think that I'll pick up the phone and dial 213-457-3380. We got hot takes on the show. You get blood on your clothes if you're sitting in the front row. I throw on my gi and then I lace the hoops. I'll have Gal lying down cause he ain't the truth. And if Alan wasn't a cop, I'd mention you. And shout out to Ross Finkelstein the Jew. Cause according to you, you're an MMA guru. A Brew Bisbing lost his hands count Dooku. If you're a fancy boy, you get a 2-minute slot. Mystery wants a title shot. So listen to the MMA podcast. Throw a high kick, but I block that. Call me TS, screaming George, where you at? I'm on the strap. But you know that I'll never tap. So listen to the MMA podcast. Throw a high kick, but I block that. Call me DS, screaming George, where you at? I want the strap. And you know that I won't tap. Mystery. The MMA podcast. Most of us just live and breathe this fighting shit. Shut up, Jake. Shut up, Jake. Cocksucker.